Okay, here's where we sit on our artistic adventure. We have SketchUp, and we have to make sure that we either have a pro version or something earlier than SketchUp 7.0. So figure out a way to keep SketchUp 6 around your machine for this single thing. Now, 7.1 SketchUp makes huge, incredibly large improvements to rendering and all kinds of different things. Much faster. You can hear the buzz, you can feel the buzz, you can think that Atlas software began that software in 1999. It was bought out by Google. You really have to go out and realize how big the buzz is. AutoCAD is huge, SketchUp is huge. In terms of growing market share or growing use, I'm going to tell you my presumption is that Google is going to be growing faster than AutoCAD, but AutoCAD is still very large, and you learn to do both. So what we've done, and originally, if you remember, we drafted flat. We used the B poly command to make regions. We used extrude to make those regions into solids. And now our hope is that when we do file import, we can go ahead and import, if we remembered where we put it, which is not always so easy. Users, for me, shouldn't be doing this, you'll all know my name, to documents, and you remember to do things by date modified, right? If you notice when you're importing in SketchUp, you want to make sure that you tell it the kind of drawing you want to import. So we were importing the golden rectangle play. And what we're going to do is we import, close, and right down there you'll see our thing. And each of these things will have come in. If it's the first thing in your drawing, they will come in as essentially solids that were defined in SketchUp. Now, realistically, they're going to see there's going to be some issues eventually with this, but if you just start with this when you've brought them in, go ahead and do Files, Save As, and keep track of your workflow, knowing which file went to what, because these are not now dynamically linked. So we're going to give this golden rectangle play, right? Now it's basically got the same name, but we're going to do some iteration on this in a second. So each of these things, if you right-click on them and list them, they come in as a region, and they're grouped together. Now, you'll see later that there are all kinds of difference. If we go right-click on them, if you have sketchy physics installed, and that's the kind of where we're heading first on this, and then eventually we'll go back to the art of draping and everything else, you're going to go ahead and there's all kinds of different types of shapes. But if you've defined most of your shapes to be convex, and convex means that any point inside the shape can see any other point inside the shape. Go back to geometry, go back to beyond the golden rectangle, and you can make these all a convex hull. So we're going to do a group across here. We're going to right click and we're going to take them, change them all to be, for now, a convex hull. We're going to go ahead and put a floor on there. That's the sketchy physics floor, and we're going to turn on now physics and expect it to explode. So we'll hit here, File, Save. Now this should not explode, but it seems to explode because there's a lot of math going on, so I apologize if it explodes. I'm going to have to pick it up at another piece of software, and what we'll do instead is come back and do some photo draping here with textures. So I'm going to turn on physics. We are using SketchUp 7.0, and we're using Sketchy Physics Experimental April SP3X. Got to go out to the SketchUp community website to download the software. It works on Apple, it works on Windows. So I'm going to turn on physics here, and there it is, it stopped working. Bummer. Well, that's to be expected. So let's not pick up the sketchy physics. You've seen that what you can do with it, at least in terms of getting it up. We're going to go back now and bring up SketchUp and then finally look at this kind of photo drape thing. All right, so we're going to go here, and we're going to realize that the photo drape will work, in fact, with the sketchy physics as well. So As we play these things together, you're going to realize how quickly you start using processing power, why in fact you want to get a decent machine, at least 4 meg of RAM if you're going to start to get creative around this, a good video card. You'll see this is a pretty dynamic piece of software. Again, now we can just open the drawing that we had a second ago. If it went to date modified, there it is. And let's finally now look at this photo drape. So we're going to take one piece of this. We're going to take that piece right there and we're going to move it out. What we're going to do in the short term, just to make it easy, we're going to go ahead and get rid of all that. And we're going to get rid of this. You can start to demonstrate. Now what you have is a piece there. It's defined as a solid or a convex hull, whatever it needs to be, but it's something called a group. How do you take it apart? In SketchUp, right click, you explode it. Now it's not. But you generally, one thing you'll see, you want things to be grouped in SketchUp. So let's see how you do this kind of photo draping. And the way we're going to do that is I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple small tricks here. I'm making a box here so I can get my coordinates set up. I'm going to push that up. And now I'm just going to grab my object first. I am going to rotate it. By getting to a face, I want to hold the plane. I'm holding the Shift key on a Windows machine. I'm going to turn that up like this, turn it that way. I'm going to once again rotate it, hold the Shift key so I hold that plane and turn it this way. And now I'm going to use some of the tools that I should know are around, and that is the camera standard views top. And in this case, you notice it looks a little different than it would have in AutoCAD because it immediately goes to perspective view. So I'm going to go to parallel projection. And now I'm going to bring in an image. So I'm going to file, import, this time not an AutoCAD, but it's something that you might get from another program. Like, you see all the imports. Now, definitely SketchUp Pro for 29 bucks or something for a student. A great investment, I have to say, mostly because of the imports, and the exports are much more huge. They do it for just about everything. And this link right here to 3DX is a big deal, 3DS file. So we're going to bring in a JPEG image, and hopefully, I see I've got a few around here. I'm going to just bring the one I got. And I'm going to bring it in as an image. Later on, you'll see bringing things in as textures is important. I'm going to just kind of do it right here. I'm going to make it about that big, and I'm going to realize that I've kind of got it in some projection there. Very often you'd want to put it up on top, so if you want to learn how to do things like go ahead and move that image, it maybe makes a little more sense to drop something down. I'm going to move that up. I can kind of move that up there, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to explode it. And now it becomes something that can be, I'm going to right click on it and I can look at the texture, and I want to see that it's a projected texture. Right, that's what I'm looking for, is a projected texture. Very often it should be related to what you're doing. It might be a design, it might be something from Photoshop. Now what you're going to do is this. You're going to go out, if you're working on a Windows machine, you're going to go to the texture machine more or less there, which is the paint bucket. And you're going to suck up the texture. All right. And now what you're going to do is you've sucked up the texture. So what you're going to do is you're going to double click inside of your block, or your, remember that was one piece, you're going to double click inside of it, and you're going to select everything. Right. And now you're just going to use the paint bucket again, and you're going to drape the image down on top of it. Now that will work with some entities better than with others, but in reality you can get the idea here. Let me go ahead and erase that. Right, you can get that sense that your image was draped onto it, and it will be draped on it on all sides. So huge ramifications. Let me just see whether this is going to explode the machine. It's just a rendered image. I'm going to erase that. I'm going to erase this, erase that. Going across, erase, and now I'm going to turn on physics. And I don't need to have a floor. I can say it blew up again. So I'll point out that these will work, and I'll demonstrate then what those two things look like when you are actually on a machine that doesn't explode. So lots of math, lots of fun, lots of art.